Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We're here with another episode of Hellbound. Last time on Hellbound, that was a pretty fantastic first episode. I saw in the comments for the last episode where many of you were saying that things will actually pick up, as the episodes progress. But for me personally, I actually thoroughly enjoyed the first episode. I think there are times when you need to have a lot of drama, a lot of action. But then there are others where it's the first episode. It needs to do a lot of world building, and uh, as long as there's a payoff for that in the end, I actually don't mind the first episode being too dialogue heavy. And some of the best shows are like that. I mean, when you look at things like Breaking Bad, there isn't a whole lot of action in Breaking Bad. They are very selective with those scenes, but they do build up. They do the world building, and oftentimes the first half of the episodes are just dropping little hints and little cues as to what will actually happen several episodes down the line. So I have no problem with dialogue. I enjoyed Squid Game for the same reason, even though there were games in between. The games weren't really the part that I was mostly focused on. Um, so yeah, dialogue is good. I don't consider dialogue to mean the show is slow paced. I think pace is often used in that manner, but I don't think that's the best way to describe it. As long as the story is progressing, I think I think it's moving at the pace that it should be going, and there was no throwaway scenes that I could think of in the first episode. So for me, it is progressing. It is moving along the plot. It's doing a lot of world building, which is necessary as long as they pay that off later on. And I did confirm it is just 6 episodes, so it's gonna be pretty tight for them to do that within just 6 episodes. Some yeah for us to get to know the characters, and in the event that any of them die, I'm concerned about how much time we're going to be spending with some of these characters, whether they're going to be the focal part of the story, or is it a case where they're going to die as a result of judgment and we're going to be moving on to somebody else. So I'm curious to see what direction the writers will go with the characters, because oftentimes you do need a few episodes to kind of um, relate to the characters a bit. And the detective that we are following, we've already learned his story. His wife passed away. His daughter is at risk of being a part of this cult. And so we're more than likely we're going to be following that story. And I'm interested to see how their relationship actually develops. In my mind, I guess she resents him a bit for not doing the worst, and getting vengeance for her mom. But I think his chief was right. He had to think about his daughter at the time, and I don't think it's good for him to take justice in his own hands. But she's a teenager, and as I've said in the last episode before, as kids, as teenagers, your perspective of the world is often very black and white, and that's just not how the world works. Um, so I'm with the detective on this one. The cult leader, yeah. Uh, as I said before, it's a very real thing that does happen. It is a very real thing that does happen, and often they do attract people who are at the worst point in their life, and take advantage of them. He may see himself as something other than, but he is definitely leading a cult here. Um, of course, there does appear to be a very real being in this world passing judgment. It's still up in the air as to whether that is someone else carrying out judgment, as in Death Note, as I mentioned before, or if this really is divine punishment and this is God, that the writer has inserted into this series. So that would be very interesting. Um, yeah, I was curious to see why the executors of hell, I think is what he called them, why exactly they appeared out of nowhere, but then when they disappeared, They didn't just vanish; they went through a door. I just found it very peculiar, and I'm wondering whether that has something to do with it. I'm hoping that we'll actually come back to that. And finally, that brings me to the woman at the end who received a visit from the angel with a message declaring when she would actually die, and it raises one of the questions that I mentioned in the last episode. In that I don't know if this is an omnipotent being who knows all, and perhaps this woman has done some horrible things. Is it a case where she has lived out her sentence? She's done her time and lived out her sentence, and she's trying to assimilate herself back into society. And she's still being judged based on her past actions. So in this case, who does this being deem to be worthy of going to hell? She seems to be a mom that's raising her two kids now. Again, I don't know what she has done. The perception is that all these people have done bad things. But are we still passing judgment on those who, under man's laws, have actually done their time? And if that's the case, I don't know how, what kind of society is that trying to build, especially when you consider that the Arrowhead group, they don't, they're doing kidnappings and assault, and they don't appear to be punished, and as I mentioned before, when the new truth guy was going through his list of bodies that he has found, he went through someone who was guilty of bribery and thievery, and I'm like, how does that rank above kidnapping and assault? So yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting, and I'm curious to get into more this actual being, whether we're going to be seeing that being or we're just going to be focusing on the people around these events that are actually happening and how they react to it. So I can't wait to get into episode 2, guys. So let's check it out. All right. They wanted to broadcast it. The demonstration, as they call it. I went back as I was editing the last video to this lawyer, and I'm realizing that she was involved in previous cases, so she is aware of new truths, but she seems to be acting as though she's not. I think it says she had ties to Arrowhead, but they seem to have ties to New Truth. So I'm curious to know whether she's playing a part here. And this is something that's being highlighted here because everything that she's been doing is what her son, who's a child, has told her is best. And that happens a lot with social media now. It's like, okay, I saw this online, so I think you should do this, mom, or you should do this, dad. But parents need to be a bit more responsible with that. Yeah, they will. So he just doesn't believe it, and he's just gonna go along with it.
아니 게다가 박정자 씨가 손해날 게 뭐가 있어?
I mean, they know the police is investigating this, so even if they don't believe that there's some omnipotent thing doing this, they know some incidents have been happening, so I don't think this was a bright move. He's just doing this out of greed so that his firm can actually get notoriety, Oh. Her mom. Shouldn't that be doubly if you're ill? Yeah, I mean, for her mom, in her mind, she's already lived a long life, so at this stage, she's not too worried about it. It reminds me of the old man from Squid Game, even though he was a complete asshole.
그러니까 그 불에 탄 것 같은 시신이 생물이 아니라 이 세상에 없는 물질이랍니다.
The hell does that mean? I fear that there may be sympathizers within the police department. But it's what happened. Uh-oh.
아이들 신상은 절대 누출돼서는 안 됩니다. 방송 전까지 박정자 씨 신상도 마찬가지고요.
저 양아치 아닙니다. 무슨 불발되면 지시해 주십니까?
I don't think he cares about the money.
이미 서면으로 다 합의가 된 상황.
이런 자리에 익숙지가 않아서
그냥 농담 좀 했습니다.
다른 조건은 상관없습니다. 그냥 박정자 씨가 여기에 계셔 주시기만 하면 됩니다. 자제분들이 몇 살이에요?
아, 이제 13살하고 6살이에요.
근데 사진에 아빠가 없어요.
What business is that of yours?
핸드폰은 원래 없어요.
아빠가 원래 없다니요. 그럴 수가 있나요?
Is that unusual?
그게 왜 궁금하신 거예요?
제가 알고 있어야 하니까요, 이유를.
Why she's being sent to hell?
지옥에 가는 이유가 궁금하다는 거죠.
뭐?
뭘 그렇게 잘못했는데?
유라 방에 들어가 있어.
뭘 잘못했는데 지옥 가냐고? 당신들 우리 엄마야? 그래. 그럼 어디 한번 밝혀봐요. 우리 엄마가 뭘 그렇게
He was just defending you, Mom. Take it easy on him.
이장님, 제 죄는 아무거나 붙여주세요.
우리 애들만
고생 안 하고 좀 살 수 있게 해주세요.
And this guy getting off on seeing people die so he can spread his new truth.
저 미친놈 진짜 저거 무슨 일 생긴다고 진짜로 믿고 있나 보네. 참나. 저런 미친 짓 중계할 방송국 한 군데도.
Yes, they will. Have you seen the media now? They'll jump at a chance to broadcast that.
가도록 새 고지를 받은 사람이 있다고 합니다. 그런데 더욱더 놀라운 사실은 지옥에 가는 상황을 준비하기로 했답니다, 여러분.
People are actually watching this garbage.
그동안의 시련은 오늘을 위해서 있었던
Again, I should not be surprised. Oh, don't tell me it's the partner. It looks like it's his partner, and he would be the only one who knows that detail outside of the new truth guy, which I don't think he would share it. And I don't see how
너 어디야 이 시간에?
what he said she did means she deserves to go to hell. He's lying to her dad.
누구?
모르는 애야.
왜? 안 돼?
Ah, come on, Dad. This is not the time
아주 꼴딱
to
세우지
lighten up.
말고 잠은 좀 자가면서 해 그럼.
I'm sorry, but he's being a bit reckless here. I mean, you saw your kid working with a cult. I think that's the part where you say you need to intervene and you need to know where she is. You know?
고마워요 이정 씨. 결심해줘서.
Making up her mind to do what?
결심은 6년 전에 했어요.
Okay, so it happened 6 years ago. I mean, as I said before, this is what happens in cults when they take advantage of the most vulnerable. But I guess I can't. I don't know. I'm trying to understand the logic behind it, but maybe there is none. I mean, this guy who she doesn't know, but I guess that's the sell. Is that they give the appearance that they are the ones that know you best and they know what you need, and you know they can relate to anything that you're actually
애들 바로
going
캐나다로
through.
보낼 거예요.
그럼 저도 공항으로 갈게요.
아이 부지런한 새끼들.
Yes, as I thought, there are already sympathizers within the department. I just didn't expect it to be someone that close to him,
이번
to the
시연
detective.
대상자는 박정자 씨.
I mean, at first it feels a bit over the top, this guy's performance and all of these crazy things that he's saying, and people are putting kids' photos online. But if you've been on Twitter, you know that's what happens. Why are they even looking at that? How many cars are there in the country? Like, really?
저 사람이죠.
I was worried that that's what he was gonna do. He wants to use her since he can't figure out what's happening. But this whole divine punishment thing gets thrown out the window. If this guy is a murderer, why hasn't he been judged as yet?
우리 인간이 정한 죗값을 치르고 잘 살고 있네요.
So he's now what? Messing out punishment himself? Well, he's not gonna get his hands dirty, obviously. But I think what he wants to see is if she kills the man, what happens to her? I mean, is every single person watching the Arrowhead program? It's just like everywhere they go, every single person is looking out for them.
주차장 위험해요.
I mean, I expect some people to be doing it, but
가자.
I don't know how to feel about the lawyer. She's going through an awful lot to help her, but I can't help but wonder, based on the article that we saw in the last episode, what her role in all this is. But for now, the woman needs all the help she can get.
돈 한번 안아주고 보낼 건데.
And the detective is not being as diligent with his own daughter as he should be right now. I'm kind of mad at him for that. Because, for me, at the moment he saw his daughter with that cult, I wouldn't let her out of my sight. She's just obediently going along with it. An incinerator. And she should be questioning everything at this point. If he believes in divine punishment so much, why would he need to take things into his own hands here? It's like she's far gone. So I am curious to get more into this, whatever this
반장님 찾으십니다.
entity is that's passing out judgment, because as I said before, they appear to be very selective as to who gets punished. Yeah, he's just passing it off as some perceived judgment. And you know, it may be a double play for him because he wants to maybe convince this detective that judgment has been passed. But I don't know why the detective would believe that now. Why would judgment be passed 6 years later? So now they're throwing in the mix whether, you know, whether the events that we've been seeing up to this point actually did happen or were they staged. But, you know, in episode 1, we clearly saw the things that came. I don't know how you could do something that elaborate in broad daylight with so many witnesses. So, I don't know. I don't know. But this one is definitely staged. We know that much.
지금 방송이랑 언론 모두 내일 박정자 씨 예고 사진에 엄청 관심이 쏠려 있어. 내일 저 새끼들은 무조건 잡아야 돼. 그 범인한테는 어떠한 처벌도 없었습니다. 오히려 병원에 입원시켜서 치료를 시켜줬죠. 왜? 그 새끼가 마약 중독자였으니까. 죄를 저지를 의도가 없었다는.
And God waited 6 years to punish this man? Get out of here with that nonsense.
또 인내하시다가 마침내 인내를 멈추시고 직접 개입하고 계시는 겁니다.
I don't know why she would ever consider that, even if she did do something, you know, and thinks she really is going to die. Whatever she confesses to will just follow her kids for the rest of their lives. So there's no reason I can see where she would actually want to do that. Well, I'm not surprised at all, but again, I'm just surprised that there is no law to prevent that. I'm kind of mad at Dad too, because he really shouldn't have let her go on her own after what he's seen that this group is capable of. Yeah, it's calling the school. The hell? Arrowhead group? How the hell did they get this far in? Yeah, thank you. Get the shit out of them. Too many of them. Damn it. Hey, at this point, you know, they came in attacking. They're all done. I'm not showing restraint in this particular situation. These people are really twisted.
VIP들 입장하십니다.
VIPs, they say.
우리 생각보다 세준이 미술이
Always some wealthy billionaire somewhere in the mix.
이 모든 게 3일 안에 가능하다니.
I'd be hesitant to just open that. They know you're attached to the case now, and that you're trying to help her. Shouldn't he like ask someone to go and go to the school or something, even if he can't go himself, but to speak to the homeroom teacher about his daughter? He's being a bit dismissive, you know.
아이들과 통화 한번 하시겠어요?
시간 다 됐다니까 그러시네.
지금 싫어요.
Go screw yourself, man.
다 끝나면 나중에 할게요. 다 끝나고.
Seems quite pleased with himself.
긴장하고 안전장치 다 풀어.
I don't think they have the firepower to stop those executors from hell. I just hope they kill some of these people around as they're trying to get to her, you know? Collateral damage. And the police chief is just hoping that nothing happens, but fortunately I don't think that's the case. Yeah. Oh man. Alright, episode 2 of Hellbound. Another interesting episode. Again, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, as long as the dialogue is moving the story along, I don't consider it to be slow paced, so I quite enjoyed this episode as well because there are a lot of moving pieces. You know, the soon to be victim here, the woman that we're following, the mom, you know, the dad, the detective whose daughter is caught up in all this mess, looking at the reaction of the world. And I've got to say, I'm a bit things have progressed a lot faster than I thought they would, and I think the lawyer said the same thing here at the end of the episode. That she didn't expect this much to happen in just 3 days. I was quite surprised by that as well. I thought just slightly things happened just a bit too quickly, even though we're in the era of social media now and information gets spread pretty quickly like wildfire. But at the same time, this is a pretty big country, you know, and I don't expect, even if someone's photo gets shared on Twitter and that this person has done some really bad things, you know, I don't think within just a day or two, unless you know, maybe after several days and the media keeps plastering the person's face, I can see that happening. But after a day or two, I don't expect people to be recognizing her children, you know. You see that one of the disadvantages or advantages with social media is that, you know, information comes and goes so quickly that you absorb one thing 1 minute and people's attention span have become so short that they forget it within 5 minutes, you know, the very thing that they've already seen. So I'm surprised that anyone is even recognizing the woman or her child just after one broadcast by the Arrowhead, you know. I'm surprised that many people are tuning into the Arrowhead, you know. Usually countries are a bit divisive when it comes to subjects like these, so you don't expect every single individual to be watching this maniac. But that aside, even if he does share the information and it does spread around, if she travels to the airport, which could be in another city over or something, I don't expect people there to be recognizing her or the kids. That just seemed a bit unlikely to me, you know. I mean, South Korea is not a massive country, but it's still millions of people, if I'm not mistaken. So it still seems unusual that even at the airport, you know, there's a risk of people recognizing her. If my photo gets shared at you know, online, and I've done some horrible things, I guarantee you by the time I get to the airport, which is like the next city over, and no one there is going to be recognizing me. Not just because, you know, they're probably not interested in what's on social media that much to remember it, but also everyone's just going about their own business, you know. So people at an airport are just there, you know, I'm just moving on. I need to get to my flight. I need to do this. I need to ensure that I have. They're not looking around. Oh, who's that person? Yeah, that person. No one does that. And I think that's a universal thing. You could go to an airport and get away with so much shit because no one is paying attention to the other people around them, really. So, but that aside, you know, what she's going through is really tragic. And again, I'm prefacing it by saying, you know, I don't know whether she's deserving of death or not, because whatever being is passing out judgment seems to be very fickle in who he judges, he or she, who they judge, you know? Because one, as I mentioned, you know, the list is not consistent. people who are thieves and commit bribery. This woman who they claim apparently, well, initially they started off with saying that she was just having an affair with a married man, as if that is somehow punishable by death, you know? I guess it depends on what religion you follow, and that is the other, giant question mark that I have. And that's, even though this is Korea, there are varying beliefs there and people with different religions. What is this God meant to represent, or what religion is this God meant to represent? Because the rules are just not the same. There are hundreds of religions, if not more, on earth, and people believe in whatever they feel like believing in these days. So, yeah, I mean, on what basis are you judging? If you want people to, as the new truth suggests, if you want people to move in the right direction and live better lives, based on what this God is passing a judgment on, how are they going to know what is punishable by death and what isn't punishable by death? There's not just one religion, and you have no real way of knowing that. So I'm curious. That's the thing I'm most curious about in seeing how the writer addresses that entity that he's that we're supposed to perceive as God in this world. I thought we'd get a bit more focus on that this episode, and we didn't. I'm hoping we do maybe by the third or fourth episode, because I want some clarification there. I want some clarification there. If this God is passing out judgment, what does he deem punishable by death, when so many people around are not being killed? Or it could just be a case where, okay, if we're going to accept that there is an entity in this world passing out judgment, just perhaps, his rules are not the same as man's rules. So what the things that these people, Arrowhead and all their sympathizers, the thing that they are focusing on as, things punishable by death may not be what this God or this entity thinks is punishable by death. So maybe this woman and all the other targets have done something that the God, that entity deems worthy of going to hell, but not by man's rules. And so I need to understand a bit, and maybe that is again something that we'll work towards the end of this season, as they kind of flesh out everything. And because we just seem to be focusing on the people and how they are reacting to it, and they are reacting in a way that everyone expects them to react. As I said, the world of social media now, people just take information as gospel and they just run with it. And it's not that difficult to amass a huge following. So cults are so easy to form these days. And in part because people are, it's hard to say, but I feel social media has not made us more intelligent. It's made us more reliant on the technology, so we become less intelligent because we do less research and investigation. We're not looking at things critically anymore. We just assume that this information that's being fed to us is accurate. So social media has made us lazy. It's made us lazy, and because we've become lazy, we don't seek truth anymore, or meaning for that matter. So it's all very bizarre, but this show and the scenes that we've seen captures that pretty eloquently, I think. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. I'm curious to know for the detective's daughter as well, what happens then. And I still think, well, perhaps not. Initially, I was thinking that the new truth leader, I thought he was performing an experiment and he wanted her to kill the man so he could see what her judgment would be, because he was so eager to find out what the mom did. So I thought this was his way of, trying to figure out why people are being judged, and he wanted her to kill the man so he could do that. But he killed the man himself, or at the very least he pushed the button for the incinerator that did it. And I guess in his mind he's spared from judgment because he's carrying out a good deed. I don't know, his rationale, there's no rationale to what he's saying or doing. and the detective's daughter just, you know, I don't know. As I said, that's a cult. You know, I can't understand its members. I mean, that's why I'm not in a cult. You know, I don't understand the decisions that they make, because I would be questioning everything that she has seen. You know, if I were her, I'd be questioning everything that I've seen. The first thing being, if there is divine judgment, why is it necessary for me to intervene or for you to intervene and kill this man? And why wasn't he killed 6 years ago? You know, and more importantly, why are you placing his body just as a you know, to give the impression that judgment has been passed when you're the one who killed him? But she's involved in this now. I don't know what the detective will do, how he'll react to that, because, you know, she played a part in it. And I do feel he's being a bit reckless here, because as I mentioned before, if I saw my daughter involved with a cult, she would be grounded for months, and I would need to know where she is every day. You know, that's something that you have to take seriously, because her life or someone else's life might be on the line. You know, and you do have to intervene at some point. But he's being a bit too nonchalant, and maybe as a parent, I'm not a parent, so I don't get it. So maybe as a parent, he feels the best thing he can do is give her space. But, you know, it's been 6 years since her mom died. I'm not saying that there's a time limit on when you can mourn someone's passing, but, you know, something is still clearly wrong. You know, if she's still mourn, and then you try to move on from that, and she still hasn't moved on from it. You know, loss is something, unfortunately, we all have to deal with throughout life. As the lawyer's mom said, you know, we're all going to die at some point, and that's something that I've made peace with, to be honest with you. I don't fear death, because I see it as a natural progression. I don't want to die if I don't have to. So I'm not reckless, you know, but I acknowledge that at some point my time will come, you know. So he needs to be a bit more vigilant, and you know, help his daughter work past it. And I can't see, maybe he has tried and it hasn't worked. So there is a possibility of that, but, you know, I don't see things ending well for her. She was smiling there at the end as she watched the body burn, and, you know, she seems to be far gone. Hopefully her dad can still reach her somehow. But even if he does, she was involved with the murder of this man. You know, whether he committed the crime or not of killing her mom. So I don't see a happy ending for her at the end of this. But yeah, I'm certainly intrigued with this story, guys. I'm intrigued with the story. There's definitely a blend of, I mentioned Death Note several times, and it's there. You know, there are a lot of similarities with Death Note, especially as far as the cult goes, because Light was a cult leader. As much as people try to deny that he was a cult leader, you know, he was a cult leader. Yeah, but there are some elements of Squid Game with the VIPs coming in and stuff like that. So they're pulling from a wide array of genres for this, and I'm quite enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to more. All right, guys. I'm sure post down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on this episode of Hellbound. And remember to like and subscribe. So I'll see you for the next one.